How are we doing, everybody? Back in the shop today. It's a little bit nippy. I got the wood stove going in the back, but it takes a while for that to warm up the space in here, but thankfully I at least have that. It's been about, I don't know, a month and some change, maybe 2 months since I've posted a video. The COVID finally caught up with me, so I was sick in January and had some respiratory stuff going on, and with doing all the work in here between paints and metal dust, wearing a respirator was problematic for me, so I took a little bit of a break. But today I'm going to start a series showing you how I make my knives. So the first thing we're going to do today, we probably won't make it to heat treat because I'm making 4 knives. We're going to take the template that we've designed, we're going to transfer that to a piece of wood, and we're going to cut that on a piece of wood. That way I have essentially a permanent template, and I don't have to continue to print pieces of paper with the design on it. So we'll transfer the design to a wooden template, we'll get that over on the bandsaw, we'll cut that out, we'll transfer that to our 1095 high carbon stock today, and hopefully get those cut out and, you know, rough shape to where you can handle them and we can start worrying about grinding the bevels. So I will give you the full disclaimer ahead of time, which you probably already know if you've seen any of my other videos. There are many of them, but I'm not a knife maker. I am not really a professional with any of this stuff, but I do enjoy making, and that's really what this channel is all about. And I'm really just showing you how I do it. There will be mistakes will be made, as they say. I'm not, you know, the best at heat treating. Basically, with all the various skills and the different tools that are in this space, I know enough to get by. So I've made a few knives at this point. I feel comfortable showing folks how I do it. Again, not the best way to do it, but I just wanted to show everybody, you know, friends, family, followers, what goes on when I make a knife and how much work goes into it. So let's go over here and transfer the design. All right, first things first, we have a piece of wood here. Not 100% sure what it is. I kind of suck at identifying them. I initially thought it was maple, but a few friends have said, oh, I think that's mahogany. But first thing we're going to do is just put a rough length on there. The knife isn't quite that long, but as you can see, this is our design, this is our template. So just mark a rough length, go ahead over to the miter saw and chop this in half or cut this off, and then we're going to transfer the pattern. I'm pretty happy with that, so I think we're going to leave it there. The paper can stay, it's not really important. This bottom edge here is nice and sharp, and that'll obviously be the part that gets traced when we layer down on our steel. So I'm happy to have this. I'm gonna, once we figure out where we want the holes for the pins, we'll drill those, and then she'll be able to hang on the wall, and we will have a template for my Battle Ridge EDC skinner. That's what I've called this. So it feels great in the hand. The blade is exactly 3 inches, which is exactly what we wanted. Legal for carry where I'm located. So that's it. Moving on. Let's get some steel. Alright, so we have our hardwood Battle Ridge EDC Skinner template. And I've got 4 bars here of 1095 high carbon steel. These are 12 inches long, an inch and a half wide, and basically 1/8 of an inch thick, which was perfect in my opinion for what I was trying to accomplish. They're made by Patriot Steel, which I believe is a USA made US brand. It had a flag stamped on here, but it's been worn off from handling. But it's available on Amazon. I will put a link in the description if anybody's interested. It's not an affiliate link or anything like that, just in case you're curious. They have other brands, or other types rather. Because I am new to knife making, I didn't want to use an expensive, an expensive and more difficult to treat steel. We need a thin one to fit between the stock here and cut this tape off. It's pretty heavy duty, unfortunately. Also, 1095 is fairly inexpensive. I think it was $30-something for these 4 bars. So it's a pretty good beginner steel from what I read. So there you go. Based on the length, we have enough to make. We only have enough to make 1 knife out of each, depending on your length and your design. You can get 1 out of each one, but that is, the leftovers are definitely enough to make a small. If you saw earlier in the video, I had a sketch of a little chopper looking blade. I still have these, hunks of this left over, the end pieces. Never throw anything away. It can all be used for something. So I'll be using those, at a later design, maybe a small neck knife, which I thought would be cool when you're, canoeing or kayaking, having something easily accessible, or even a small river knife. And that's the plan. So anyways, we'll get these marked out on here and we'll get going. A lot of people don't like using templates this thick. They like to use the paper ones and glue them to the steel, just like I did earlier to the wood. And or they will just make copies of their paper design and drop magnets on it to stick it to the steel. It is 100% more precise than the way that I'm doing it. But what I did not want to do was have it be, difficult to handle, or something that I had to continuously print out. So, in considering that, I'm not a knife maker, and I don't have like a customer base that demands precision or anything like that. Doing it this way is fine for me. And they are close enough, to the original. So, here we go. Let's get all 4 of them on there. All right, we've got our design transferred to all 4 pieces of the 1095. Ideally, you wouldn't have the design that close to the edge in case you wanted to grind a nice flat 90-degree spine for being able to throw sparks and stuff like that. But this, this works for me, and it all comes out in the wash when you take care of your grinding. So this way, when you're doing your stock removal, we'll just cut it here and we'll have minimal stuff to take off. So that's why I put them that close to the edge, or design them that close to the edge specifically. So moving on, let's cut them out. All right, I wanted to show you guys what I use, my bandsaw station. So I'm going to take you over here. Hopefully everybody can still see me, and show you what I got and how I remove my material from the knife stock or the stock steel. So there we go. All right, this is my Milwaukee. I don't know if we can see it all that well, but this is a Milwaukee deep cut Portaband bandsaw. I have it mounted to Swag Off-Road. It's a metal bench base. You've probably seen them if you notice any of the stuff on Amazon or you use it. But it's a nice heavy duty Milwaukee mounted up to the Swag Off-Road metal tabletop, which is fantastic, because I don't know if you know this or not, but bandsaws, or metal bandsaws specifically, upright models, are crazy expensive. That was, geez, I forget how much it costs. I'll put info and links in the description. Again, no affiliate links, just straight up info. And then I did add a pedal to it. So I have this nifty little pedal. You have to pardon the mess, but you just run a cord to it, you plug the pedal into it, and then the bandsaw plugs into the pedal. So she fires up and works that way, which I find to be pretty awesome and pretty fantastic. Mostly because if you're cutting a piece and you have a problem, or the last time actually it helped because I cut myself. I ran the material through, wasn't paying attention, finished the cut right into my thumb, and because I was able to take my foot off the pedal and have the blade slow down, I didn't lose the tip of my thumb, so that was good. But yep, that's what we use, so we'll get started here. So, I wish I could figure out how to insert one of those SpongeBob clips, you know, the 3 hours later things. It's not been 3 hours, but some time has passed. But I didn't want to drag everybody through the mud on that. So here we are. We've got 4 of our 1095 cutouts. We've got the edges ground down nice and smooth. That's a 56 grit belt, I think. So I shouldn't say nice and smooth, but the profile is in. So, you know, it's a little bit of work. Not as much work as hammering out the steel, but it's a little bit of work. So we have the edges, you know, cleaned up and shaped, and we did a little bit of flat grinding on it just to clean up the burrs that built up. But we have 4 now, fairly identical 1095 cutouts. So the next step that I take is to change the grits on the belt. So I'll go, you know, much lower, like 120, and then either 220 or 240. Just clean up the edges, nice and clean. And then we're gonna start with we'll start grinding in our bevels. But here you go. I like to clean them up a little bit with some acetone or something similar before I start on my bevels, just because I don't really go crazy putting a mirror finish on things. This is obviously a pretty rough finish because, I don't know, it's just not really my style. I want these knives to be used, and they're going to get scratched and everything, and I do some kind of my own acid etching and stuff, but you have all the sticky residue left on here from the labels and stuff like that, so you definitely want to get that off before doing the bevels, because I want everything to be nice and flat as we move the jig. I made a jig to get the bevels, you know, pretty consistent for the most part, which I'll show you here in a minute. But I'm just going to go ahead and clean these up a little bit, and then we'll move along to the next step here. Like I said, I'm well aware that a lot of this stuff I may skip steps, or, you know, do things in a kind of a weird way, but I know that a lot of people kind of have their own routines, and this is sort of mine, you know. So at the end of the day, what's most important to me is to have a usable, you know, usable tool. I'm not looking to win a show or, you know, anything like that. So is it tough? Can you put an edge on it? Will it hold that edge? Did the heat treat take? Those are the things that I worry most about. One thing that I forgot to mention before we start with the bevels, we want to mark our center line on our knife. So I take, I've already done it, I'm going to do another coat. I take a Sharpie and just blacken the edge, and then we let that dry, so when we scribe our center line, you can see it clearly. So when you're grinding your bevels, you can use that as sort of a guide. So usually I'll just use a drill bit which I'll go ahead and grab one at this point, and we'll scribe our center line. This is a sort of a crude way to do it, but you get yourself a nice flat area, and you use a drill bit that's the same size as the material. This is 1/8 inch thick steel, and then you take the drill bit and you'll lay it out on there and scribe the center line on the knife with the drill bit. Does a pretty good job, if we can see that. But as sort of an added measure, people will flip it around a lot of times and do it again. And that way, if it's not perfectly in the center, in this case it pretty much is. I don't know if we can see that on the camera, but it puts a nice center line on there for you, so that's good to go. I'll go ahead and do the rest of these. Very simple, but you do both sides. Oops, because the idea is you flip it over and do the other side, and that way if it's not exactly in the center, you'll have two lines on there, and then you can split the difference when you're grinding your bevels. Pretty good again. So like I said, fairly crude way to do this, but for the garage based newbie knife maker like myself, it works out all right, so we'll be fine. So got our center lines on here. We're pretty flattened out. Steel is cleaned up, and we can go ahead and start on our bevels. Yeah, see, that one's not as fantastic as the others. Not happy with that one at all. So we're going to redo this one, and we'll see you at the grinder. So earlier I mentioned I had a jig to help me with bevels, and this is it. There are plenty of these videos on YouTube that show you how to make these. It's a pretty simple and crude way of doing it, but so far it's worked out okay. So you're basically just taking a piece of angle iron, tapping a few holes for some screws that set the placement for your blade, and the back screw here, which I have ground flat to get to a specific angle for for my bevels. So what we want to do is we're going to mark our plunge lines of where we're going to start, so we can hopefully replicate the knives, and they get, they come out very similar. So that's the goal. So now that we have all of our center lines marked, I'm going to go ahead and mark our plunge lines real quick. Use my fancy digital caliper. I just sort of eyeball it and pick a size that looks good to me, and I scribe it's not going to show up on the camera, but scribe a little line on there on all of them, and that way all of these knives will be as close to the same as possible. Oh, that one I already started a sharpening choil on, like a bonehead, but that way we've got a reference point for all these. So I'm going to get masked up, and we're going to start grinding. All right, I think that's going to be it for the day, everybody. We've got, out of our four setups here, we've got all four of them have been, profiled and cleaned up with center lines of the, of the bevels marked, or the blade's edge. I've got one, if we can see it in the video or not, with the bevels started most of the way. I think I use like I think it's a 50 grit belt to start with. My heavy belts, they're a little bit too worn at this point to continue with them, so I'm gonna wrap it up for today, and I'm gonna hit the store and grab a couple of belts, some of the coarse grit stuff, like some replacement 50 grits. So I'll do a little bit more on these, and then continue on the other three with the 50 grits. I think I normally would take it to like a I don't know if it's 120 or 220 before heat treat. What you want to do though is be careful of going too thin on this edge before heat treat, because the heat treat can, you don't want it to warp the blade or anything like that. So that's it. I've got to pick up a couple more heavy duty belts, because there's no way that, I was kind of fingers crossed, trying to get through this one so I could at least finish the rough grinds on one of them. The other three, there's definitely no way I could continue with those belts. They're just not cutting it, no pun intended. So I'm gonna do that, and we'll be back tomorrow, finish the bevels on the other ones, and maybe we'll be able to heat treat. So we'll see you in the morning.